Time now for Back Pages tonight here on Sky Sports News, bringing you a first look at the sports stories in the morning's newspapers. And joining us are Mark Ogden, senior writer for ESPN, and Jack Rosser, sports reporter for The Sun. Welcome along to you both. We'll hear from you shortly. Let's quickly run you through the back pages, starting off with the back page of The Sun. Core blimey, have Babmo's more out of cop than in. Yes, of course, it's to do with Mo Salah's future at Liverpool. And according to Pep, KDB won't stay if not top man. To Kevin De Bruyne, another man whose future is uncertain. Mo bombshell on the back page of the Mail. Salah reveals he's more out than in amid contract tangle. And yes, Lord Co exploring treadmill world championship, which is an interesting one. Back page of the Guardian looks like this again on Mo Salah leaning towards an exit with Liverpool yet to offer a new deal. And the picture there of West Ham beating Newcastle away from home in the Monday Night Football, handing a lifeline to Julian Lopetegui. Back page of the Eye. Salah admits his disappointment at lack of contract offer from Liverpool again. And a hammer blow. Yes, there it is. Wan-Bissaka celebrating for West Ham. Go Salah is the headline on the back page of the Mirror. And Pep make Reds fight for our title. Yes, defiant stuff from Guardiola today. In the Times, Stars futures in doubt. Salah says he is more out than in at Liverpool. And also there on the right-hand side, RFU's record 1.1 million pay for Sweeney. Yes, the troubling situation around rugby union right now. RFU's Chiefs, there you go, 1.1 million salary, sparks fury. And you can see the celebration from Mo Salah as he scores those 2 goals at Southampton. Salah flexes muscles in contract standoff. Cypher says that he is more out than in at Anfield. OK, let's get to our guests. Welcome once again, Mark and Jack. OK, well, we've got to start with Mo Salah. The phrase that I've quoted several times already, probably more out than in. Interesting this, isn't it, Mark, in terms of the timing, the context of the comments and, you know, Salah actually just simply expressing himself on this situation, which he doesn't tend to do that often. What do you make of it?
Yeah, the timing, you're right. I mean, it's a massive week for Liverpool, Real Madrid and Man City at home this week. So 2 massive games and 2 crucial competitions. So he's kind of dominated the spotlight before that. January's coming next month, so in almost a month, so he can talk to overseas clubs about a free contract move in the summer. But I just think it's Mo Salah he's very clever, you know, he knows the value of his words and he doesn't speak very often. So when he does speak, we take notice. And obviously at the start of this season, in the Man United game, he came out and said that hadn't had any talks, and that created a few ripples for quite a while. And this is the same, you know, that the fact that Mo Salah stopped after the game to speak to reporters after the game at Southampton yesterday is unusual. And, you know, it's just a bit strange that a guy that never speaks to reporters in a mix zone suddenly decides to stop and speak and talk about the question that everyone's asking about. So, you know, Mo Salah, I've been told by people at Liverpool that Mo Salah is very aware of his power, of the power of his words, and he likes to create a bit of mystique about himself and elevate himself a little bit higher than most footballers in you know what he says and does. And this is a classic example. You know, he's a few little words and he's created a big debate about his future. But obviously, Mo Salah, Virgil van Dijk, Trent Alexander-Arnold, they're all out of contracts in the summer. Liverpool have allowed them all to get to this situation, which is probably not ideal from their perspective. They have to deal with it, and I guess it's a case of who blinks first. You know, does the player blink first, or the club blink first? Because whichever player gets the first deal, the other two will want an equally big deal. So it's a tricky one for Liverpool. But, you know, Mo Salah's the biggest star, he's the best player, so he's dominating the headlines because he said what he said. Yeah.
Let's just look at the back page of the Mirror. Go Salah is the headline. And if you look at the start here of Mike Walter's piece, Mo Salah has hit Liverpool with an explosive contract ultimatum and warned he's more likely to leave the club than stay at Anfield. Jack, what's your read in terms of, well, you know, I suppose he's a man, yes, a very few words, picking his moment here to you know, as Mark alluded there, to have maximum impact.
Yeah, I'd be a bit miffed if I was in-house at Liverpool, I think, really. The way that we've said, you know, Salah rarely talks, especially to the English written press. It's the first time he's done it in about 5 years, I think, and it's probably only the third time he's done it since he joined Liverpool. I think you would be a bit upset, really, that he's almost using those words to turn fans against the club, because fans will see it as a completely obvious decision. And in many ways it is. They should get a contract sorted out. They probably will get a contract sorted out at some point. He's still in fantastic form, in fantastic shape, and such an important player. But there are obviously talks going on with his representatives. They will have been going on for some time, and they probably just aren't quite in the right place to make a formal offer yet. So in such an important week, when he knows the impact that that's going to have, and it sounds like he made a beeline for the reporters outside St Mary's yesterday to go and make his mark now in what we've said is a big week. You'd be a bit upset, I think, if you were the Liverpool hierarchy, probably trying to get through these complicated negotiations in good faith, because it's a huge decision in terms of the finances. They probably haven't got the finances to do him, Van Dijk and Trent Alexander-Arnold all in one summer on huge contracts. So it's about carefully, planning and making the decision as to where the best channel to go down with that money is. I think it's probably, Salah staying is the right decision. They're just trying to go about it in a careful manner. And really, this is the third time this season he's tried to add tension to that or rev it up a touch, really, and get the fans on his side. He spoke after the game at Manchester United. There was a fairly cryptic Instagram post 3 weeks or about a month ago that got on all the back pages. And I think you'd be a bit upset if you were within Liverpool and saw this coming a few times in a season now for someone who really doesn't offer their opinion on things too often.
He's obviously keeping up his side of the bargain. 10 goals and 6 assists in 12 league games this season. Back page of the Eye on Mo Salah looks like this. So yes, I feel more out. And then again, admits his disappointment at lack of contract offer from Liverpool. He did say in September, no one's talked to me about contracts. Now he's saying, well, get almost in December. He's almost like sort of time marking at certain moments, isn't he? And Mark, what do you make of Jack's point there of stoking up the fan voice, and how much of a factor could that be, and how, therefore, should Liverpool respond?
Well, it's definitely stoked the fans up. There's been a lot of anti-FSG social media comments today about Liverpool's owners for not getting the deal done. But I think behind the scenes, Liverpool are a bit more calm about this than you might expect. They are speaking to the Salah camp, and the situation with Liverpool is that, Mo Salah's the highest paid player and he's the best player, but he's 33 next summer. So, can they give him a deal that he's on now? A huge deal when, 2 or 3 years down the line, he may not be as effective. Now, Mo Salah, for me, even at 33, he's still got maybe 2 or 3 years left in him. But Liverpool have to make that judgment. And I guess, who do you do first? Do you do Salah, Van Dijk or Alexander-Arnold? It's a really tough one. You could make it a case for all of them. Trent's the guy in his mid-20s, the homegrown player that, everyone thinks could be captain in the years to come. Van Dijk has been absolutely massive this season at centre-half. But Mo Salah's a talisman, but it's which one do you do first? Because it's a difficult situation they've got themselves in, but I think Salah knows this. I think Salah's playing a little bit, putting a bit of pressure on, but I think ultimately he wants to stay because he knows that the market out there right now, there isn't an obvious destination for him. He's too young and too good to go to Saudi Arabia. I think he's got plenty of time to do that. And the European market, there's no money there. So, Real Madrid have got their forward line stacked up. Barcelona have got financial problems. There's no point going to PSG because the French league isn't demanding enough. So he's really only got one place to go, and that's Liverpool. So I think ultimately the deal will get done. But this is just a bit of a standoff right now with, Mo Salah's power against Liverpool's power. And I think ultimately they'll come to an agreement, but it's which one they do first. Yeah.
And if you look at the table, obviously Liverpool are 8 points clear of Manchester City after 12 games. And, they want to keep that advantage, of course they do, but then you get into the second half of the season, they need to resolve these things. They do not want to be derailed, do they? And once especially they can talk to clubs overseas. All sorts of different factors in this situation with Liverpool and these players out of contract in the summer. Jack, let's come to your paper, The Sun, and you're linking, in fact, the two big names whose futures are certainly in huge discussion, and not just Mo Farah, but Kevin De Bruyne. And it was very different commentary or address from Kevin De Bruyne when he was speaking about his future, because it was in a much more formal setting, wasn't it? In a Champions League pre-match news conference, Manchester City playing final this week. So compare and contrast. Where do you see this one out with De Bruyne and City?
It seems a lot more relaxed, and maybe that it's on Kevin De Bruyne to make his mind up. Really, it's not him pushing them to give him a deal. It's really, does he feel like he can still contribute at this level? I think that's what Pep Guardiola's hinted at as well, speaking alongside him ahead of the game. It's a difficult one, really, because he's obviously not in the form that Mo Salah's in this season. He's not had the chance to be in the form that Mo Salah's in this season. But when he's at his best, he's just as important a player for Manchester City. He can really set the tone, and they'll probably be looking to him to, come back and really help resurrect their form this season. But again, it's a difficult position for him to be in. He will want to be playing in that team when he knows he can be the main man still and be the one that they all look to really make an impact when they need him to and deliver. And if he doesn't feel like he can be in that position, then, Mark was saying there, Mo Salah's got a hell of a lot more to contribute, it looks like, to Liverpool. If Kevin De Bruyne doesn't think he can do that, then maybe it is the time to go and get that money from somewhere like Saudi Arabia, where we know there's almost as much interest in him as there is bringing Mo Salah over there.
Pep Guardiola, Mark, was very defiant with his message. The squad isn't ageing. He doesn't want to change anything. But do you think that time is catching up with Kevin De Bruyne?
Well, yeah. I mean, he's 34 next summer, and the squad is aging. There's no getting away from it. Bernardo Silva, Ilkay Gundogan, Kevin De Bruyne, Ederson. There's quite a few. Kyle Walker. A lot of players in that City squad are in the 30s or mid 30s. So you can't deny the fact that it's getting an old squad. De Bruyne has had a lot of injuries in the last 2 years, and I think we're playing a bit of a tap dancing around the issue here at City. I think they're trying to kind of project it in a nice way, but when the time has come for Vincent Kompany to go, David Silva to go, they went, because their time had come to an end. Kevin De Bruyne will have given City 10 years service next summer. The time comes for everybody to move on, and I think that's where we are with Kevin De Bruyne. His contract's up in the summer. There's no real reason to give him a new contract at 34 when he's had injuries for the last 2 years, and I think he knows that. I think City know that, and it wouldn't make sense for either side to stay when he knows that he can make money elsewhere, and he doesn't want another year in the Premier League if he's not fit, and he's not been fit for the last 2 years properly.
Do you know what? I'm going to stay with you, Mark, but on Jack's paper and The Sun, on Ruben Amorim apparently giving his side 5 out of 10 for their performance in the 1-1 draw with Ipswich, of course, his first match in charge. Again, like a statement, to verbalise this, it's come from a source who said their performance was a 5 out of 10. I mean, does this maybe show a little bit about what Amorim is about, where his standards are, and what he expects, and how on earth does he get them way above that? Because it sounds like, to try and execute what he wants to do with the 3-4-3, with the players that he's got, I don't know what maximum score you can possibly get, but, I don't know how much further it will be above 5.
Yeah, well, I was at Ipswich on Sunday, and I watched him closely, and it was interesting to watch his body language and his reaction on the touchline, because he was very frustrated with a lot of his players. There was an incident right at the end of the game, 93rd minute, they're chasing a winner, and he absolutely berated Joshua Zirkzee for just not getting in the penalty area. He was strolling around 20 yards outside the penalty box, and he said, look, he basically made him sprint into the box. And he actually he referenced that after the game, saying that Zirkzee has to know that he's got to be in the box. He referenced Johnny Evans not getting close enough to certain players. So he's not afraid of saying it as it is, and I think he's right. I think it was a 5 out of 10 at best. United started well, but they faded very quickly, and I think we saw that a lot of those players that he's got are just not equipped to play in that system. But there's a lot of talk about the system right now and how a lot of players have to work their way into it. But the reality is, no matter what system Man United play, a lot of those players still aren't good enough. They haven't been good enough for Erik ten Hag. They haven't been good enough for a long time. So if it's 4-4-2, 3-4-3, 4-5-1, whatever it is, the majority of those players in that squad aren't good enough for Man United. And Ruben Amorim has worked that out already. And it's just how quick he can move them out and get the players in that can do what he wants them to do.
Yeah, feels like it might be a work in progress for some time. All right, chaps, we'll take a break. And when we come back, we will look at more of the back pages, including this in The Guardian. The Monday Night Football. 2 triumph hands lifeline to Lopetegui. West Ham winning 2-0 at Newcastle. Maybe the Spaniards lives to fight another day. You're watching Back Pages tonight. Welcome back to you at home. Welcome back to Mark Ogden, who's senior writer for ESPN, and Jack Rosser, who's sports reporter for The Sun. Let's head to The Guardian. Let's talk about the Monday Night Football and a victory for West Ham at Newcastle. The headline here, Toon triumph hands lifeline to Lopetegui. Does it feel very much like that, Jack, that this was such a key game and it's a vital shot in the arm for Lopetegui, who is right on the ropes here?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it never feels like at West Ham you're far away from a manager having 2 games to save his job, especially over the last year or so, certainly this year since their form turned after the new year under David Moyes. But this was genuinely a situation where you were hearing that West Ham were going to be ready to make a change if things didn't improve off the back of this international break. It's been such a frustrating start to the season for them in terms of spending big, getting the manager they wanted in the door fairly early on in the summer as well, and having what looked at the outset a fairly good transfer window, but some of the players haven't settled very well. Nicholas Füllkrug, who's the big money new striker, has barely kicked a ball and has had a really poor injury that was supposed to be a couple of weeks and has dragged out. It was the first international break he got injured in, and he's still not come back from that. And Lopetegui was, hadn't really caught on with the supporters. They were hoping for a complete change in the style of football and something a bit more attractive and progressive after David Moyes' more pragmatic style had stopped to work its magic really at London Stadium, and they hadn't got that. It was more of the same, but less of a plan really. Whereas tonight it was energetic. They were a bit ropey at the back at times, and Newcastle definitely weren't at their best. But it's a huge shot in the arm. It was really getting to the point where an embarrassing defeat tonight could have been Lopetegui's last game after just 12 in the job. So it really is a boost to him and something that they do need to build on. Although I don't think he's going to be in the dugout when they play Arsenal at the weekend.
We did briefly mention Pep Guardiola. We were talking in the context of Kevin De Bruyne earlier on, but let's get back to Pep, Mark, and this is the back page of the Mirror. So you can just see there on the right-hand side, Pep, make Reds fight for our title. He wants to try and protect the legacy, doesn't he, here, Mark? What did you make of just his demeanour as he was talking about it? He seemed... he was up for the chat today. Sometimes he's very, very sort of short answered, isn't he? Not the case in this pre-match press conference against Feyenoord.
Yeah, it was fairly combative as well, because when he was asked about what needs to change, he was basically saying, well, why should I change anything? I've won all these trophies over all these years, so don't tell me I've got to change. And, he's got a point, but in terms of fighting for the title, if they don't beat Liverpool at Anfield at the weekend, then that could be it, because, they're already 8 points behind, and if Liverpool win 11 points behind at this stage of the season against a good Liverpool team is a big gap to close. So they really have to win. They really have to put on the performance of champions that, we know they are. 4 straight titles. Nobody's ever done that before. So City have got a legacy to defend. I don't think it'll be affected by what happens this season in terms of the league. But, Pep doesn't like finishing second or third. And I think this is probably the worst season they've had since his first season at the club. So questions are being asked because it's so unlike Man City under Pep Guardiola. The first season that the team were getting used to his methods and he had to clear players out and get players in. But this is totally his team. There's no excuses for this team apart from the fact that, as we discussed earlier on, they are getting old. Despite what Pep says, they are getting old. So maybe he's squeezed so much out of this team that it does need a bit of a revival and a renewal. And in that situation now where they can't do it because off the field, they've got the issue with the 115 charges, which they deny and they're fighting against. But while that is going on, it's hard for the club to attract players to come in because, why have they got Man City now in January thinking that this club might be in a real difficult situation in 6 months' time?
Just briefly, Jack, is this the sort of the form we'd expect from Pep at this point, the sort of stubbornness, the defiance in the face of this adversity, which, of course, he's never faced before in his coaching career, losing 5 on the trot?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the interesting thing. We've never really seen him in this position before and having to come out like this. But I think it's the message he'll want to send his players is that he's really ready to fight for them and fight for this and really give them the sort of energy that they've been lacking in the performances recently. I think, you'd be foolish to write them off at the moment. We've seen them do not quite to this extent, but have wobbles every season in the first half of the season and go on some incredible run. It might be if he can get this team that doesn't have Rodri and is getting on and doesn't look to have the legs that it once had. If he can get them going and go on a run, it might be his biggest achievement yet. Certainly winning a 5th Premier League title, so you wouldn't write them off, but they are really going to need to show a lot of that fight and almost, that mentality that they want to shut everyone out and prove a few people wrong after the last few weeks. So he needs to be the one setting that tone.
Let's move to Jack Papers, but also talk to you, Mark, about Guillermo Vicaria, the Spurs keeper who suffered this fractured ankle, out for the foreseeable future. It happened in the 4-0 win at City. How significant a blow is this for Spurs, would you say?
Yeah, it's massive. He's been a real big plus for him since he signed for the club over a year ago, and I think he's a much better goalkeeper than Fraser Forster, who's the number 2. He's a different goalkeeper, but he brings a different thing to what Tottenham do. He plays a certain way. And Spurs have got a big few weeks coming up. They've got a quarter final of the Carabao Cup against Man United, and Ange Postecoglou tells us that he wins a trophy in his second year. Well, that's his best chance, and obviously his best chance of winning that trophy has been diminished by the fact his first choice keeper is going to be out for, it looks, for a couple of months. So, Spurs may need to go into the market in January for a goalkeeper, because as good as Fraser Forster has been in the past, he's not that goalkeeper anymore. He's a guy in his mid-30s whose best days are a long way behind him. So it's a massive blow for Tottenham, because Vicario is, has proved to be one of the best signings they've made for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, he played brilliantly in that game against City, didn't he? And he's really established himself as the default number one at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. What do you think they will do in January? What might the options be, Jack?
I suppose it depends how serious and how long it takes, Vicario to recover, and how well Forster manages to do. If they can keep a stable defence in front of him, he's not going to be someone that's rushing out and sweeping things up, but he's been a reliable shot stopper in the past. They might maybe stand a better chance from set pieces now. Teams aren't dumping the ball straight on top of Vicario every single time, but it will depend on that. There aren't too many options out there to go, and they won't want to go and spend big on a goalkeeper in January. There may be one or two on a free or a loan deal that they manage to sneak across the line. But if Forster comes in and manages to impress, then they may be happy just to carry on with him. And it's such a significant part of the season that there are so many games between then and now that they can't really think too much about January right now, because they've got an awful lot to get through before we get there. You do have to feel a bit sorry for Tottenham fans. They've been so inconsistent on the pitch, having a high and then a low, that they can't even enjoy this high until they play again. It's, almost been whipped out from under their feet within a day a day or two of a fantastic result against Manchester City.
We're going to close a bit of rugby, guys. Got about a minute and a half or so left. In the Telegraph, talking about just the malaise surrounding the RFU right now, and Bill Sweeney with a £1.1 million salary, despite the fact that, well, obviously they've had a £40 million loss, and he's had his pay hiked up by 60%. How out of touch does this feel to you, Mark?
Well, it's not great, is it? Especially when you counter the fact that the RFU have laid people off recently, a lot of redundancies, and people losing the jobs on average salaries and basic salaries that devastating for people who lose the jobs that have mortgages to pay, and the chief exec is getting a pay rise and he's earning a seven-figure sum. That is the basic optics of it, and it's just not good. We know that CEOs at big companies earn lots of money. It's a competitive market. They have to give them attractive salaries, but I think, considering what the RFU have been through and the people that have been laid off and the losses that they've made, it's a really bad look, considering that their top man is making so much money and making more money than they did last year when the pitch wasn't quite so bad.
All right, gents, we're going to leave it there, but thank you very much indeed both to Mark Ogden from ESPN and Jack Rosser from The Sun. We'll speak to you again very, very soon.